Okay, we're rolling. Okay, interrupted by a serious phone call there, but we're just finishing off the Kahilot 3:15. So this is part 2, and we were here. Ma shaya kabar hu ve'asher la hayot kabar haya. That's where we stopped. So it's the what, or to quantify and qualify the essence of the delay, multiplying or making strong what has been sieved or sifted, the same, validated, reaffirmed, confirmed, that's the word ve'asher, as being valid, being real, la hayot, lamed he yod vav tav. So in other words, Yahweh is not doing anything indiscriminately. When he said to Abraham, the cup of the iniquity of the Canaanites is not yet full, so you and your offspring are going to be having to hang out here as people without a home for 430 years, and they're going to be strangers in Egypt. 430 years, it's going to take 430 years for Yahweh to say the cup of the iniquity of the Canaanites, various different people groups within that land geographical area. And when the cup of their iniquity is full, then you guys can go in, because their protection and their covering will have disappeared. So you read that story and you go, oh, that's not. No, wait a minute. He's telling us the way the world works. For whatever reason, a people have a certain type of covering, a certain type of protection. Okay? And if you behave a certain way, that protection is eroded, is compromised, is disintegrated, just dissolves into nothing. And when your protection, your covering is gone, you're disappeared, you're absolutely vulnerable to any attacker that'll come in. And at that point, Yahweh says he knew, knowing the future from the past and however that works, he knew that in 430 years, the Canaanites' covering would be diminished, gone. Even though they still lived in giant castles with formidable walls of their fortresses, and they had these soldiers and brave, tough warriors, valiant men, such that the 12 spies of the Israelites that went in there to scope it out said, gosh, these guys are just, there's no way we could do it. And Joshua and Caleb said, sure there is. There is a way. It's Yahweh. Yahweh will absolutely, if he says he's given us the land, he's given us the land. If Yahweh says he'll take out our enemies, he'll take out our enemies. If their covering, their protection is gone, their covering is gone. And even Rahab, the innkeeper harlot lady in Jericho, admitted that they all knew it. She said our warriors were disheartened, and they were the most powerful nation around. The word Jericho is the word for moon, like the full moon being round. And Jericho, the walls fell down. They went around the city. I think that Jericho probably was a round city, and it said it had a melech. It said king, but it was actually melekah, which would be a female, feminine. So they probably had a queen, like the queen bee in this beehive. And their belief, their culture, their commerce, their military was probably radiating all around like a beehive. And Jericho was the first city that Joshua took out, thus diminishing the influence and effect of that whole cultural, you might say, imposed on all the other Canaanites around. They also took out Og and Sihon. But what I'm saying is that the concepts that are embedded within these words are part of the story that we miss if we don't look at the Hebrew. So Yahweh's, we have to sustain an attitude, sustain a behavior. That's that word, shin he yod he. And the quality, the essence, the what we do as an intentional sustaining. If it happens by accident, like we were saying in the tail end of the last video, it almost like, well, that counts, but it doesn't count. You know, you killed somebody, that's manslaughter, you didn't intend it, it's not murder. But if you're a mass murderer, if you're a killer, if you're this perpetual, habitual, that's who you are. And Yahweh's going to have you sustain who you are and fill the cup of your iniquity full. That's that word, asher. So the word, he's going to sieve, and the essence of what is sustained, confirmed, validated, strengthened, you doing it on purpose continually, is an expression of what's in your heart. The noon that you mem is you, and it's going to be the fruit on the tree. It's going to be the ayin that you somic, and then Yahweh will take that and make you drink it. That's what we were reading in Isaiah 3:9. That's what's in the Mishkan pattern. That's the message in the Aleph Bet. And the reason Yeshua died on the cross was to relieve us of that burden and give us a new hope and a way to turn and enter the kingdom of Yahuwah to live and not be subject to the repercussions in a totality, though he said to David, because of what you just did, the sword will not leave your family for the rest of your generations, yet you can be forgiven and brought into redemption, a place of, boy, that's past me, but the sword never left his family. And so Absalom rebelled against him, and his sons killed each other, and on and on. But and even sustaining probably to this day. So though there is a forgiveness, it's not absolution. Even though Yeshua died on the cross. What we've been told by our preachers is not necessarily the story, but the message in this Aleph Bet and in these words is the story. And so here we have that kabar haya. So that you could go back and say, well, that word kabar means to be make strong or multiplied, like what Yahweh did to Pharaoh's neck. He stiffened his neck. He took what was already the essence and amplified it. It's like putting, if you have music and it's kind of fuzzy and you put it through, graphic equalizer and other types of filters to come up with the pure essence of the music, that's what's happening here. So then it says, cause to bring about the Elohim. Vav, Hey, Aleph, Lamed, Hey, Yod, Mem. And the Elohim, well, that word Elohim is translated as gods, or God, or the power. You could say Elohim's objective. That's mishpat. Elohim's job description. Yod bet kuf shin. Well, that's the word for seek, but it also means to quest, ask, search, beg for, pray for, summon, wish, desire, intend, and aim for. It's not just seek. In other words, everything that drives him. In other words, this is the mission. This is the object of Yahweh's kingdom. The kingdom of heaven manifest is this word, to aim for, to, when you quest and seek and search and aim, and it's a lusting, craving, driving you to do what? And here's the last word. Aleph Tav, now that's the putting, now that's pinning, because Aleph Tav is a type of yoke, it's pinning this verb action onto this noun. Again, more balanced scales. The picture of the letter Vav in Paleo, which is why I draw it like that, and I draw the Paleo Vav because it's this very specific yoke as compared to this symbol, which is what Benner uses and what other people use. It's a legitimate picture of a hook, but what I'm saying is something attached to something else. It's a nail, it's a bridge, it's a connector. It's Yeshua connecting heaven to earth. It's man's occupation of taking the concerns of heaven and manifesting them as our earthly behavior. Aleph Tav is this connector, this Vav, this yoke, this ayin of Nun, Resh, Dalet, Pei. Well, the word radaf, because Nun can be a prefix, means pursue, chase, or seek after. Well, this is directly played after the word that came before, which means beg for, search, quest, or ask. This is pursue, chase, seek after, but it also is persecute, harass, and oppress. Well, if you're persecuting somebody, like the Nazis to the Jews, man, they chased those guys down all through the 1940s, all through Europe, here, there, and everywhere else, and they were looking for anyone. How do you find them? How do you find them? They're hiding. How do you trick them? How do you trap them? Man, they were going after them with a vengeance. That's the word. But it also means follow eagerly. That's like a kid running after the ice cream truck. It's not necessarily a bad thing. Flow rapidly, like that river we saw. Or if you say, well, man, when that snow melts and it's 100 degrees out and that stuff is coming down it's the same word. To strive eagerly to reach. Well, that's us trying to figure out what did Yahweh say and what did he mean so we can do it. And thy kingdom come, please. That same attitude is both bakash and radaf. It also means scattered and dispersed. So when you put the nun in front of it, it means to be in the action of craving to chase something down to do. But remember, he's not talking about us here. He's talking about this as Elohim's occupation. And then you look in the dictionary, taking off the noon and looking at, we were just looking at resh dalet pei, but now if you put the noon back on, noon resh dalet pei, it means synonymous. The same thing. What? He's saying that Elohim's occupation is striving eagerly to make things synonymous. There's the balanced scales of Mishpat. So what he's saying here is whatever we do, the quality aspect of whatever's in our heart to sustain the whole kingdom of heaven business is to make what happens then that chases us synonymous, equal. This is the word Nun Resh Dalet Pei. It's synonymous with the word Aleph Shin Resh that we talked about this before, that's straight, valid, confirmed, and authorized, which is similar to the word for Shin He Yod He, which means to sustain, endure, which is synonymous with a variation, a derivative of Shin He Yod He, which is Shin Vav He. If you look at the word Shin Vav He in the dictionary, it means to be like, to be equal, to be equivalent, compared, synonym, smooth, straightened, made to agree, plain, level. What's the word Yashar, as in Israel, which is a derivative of Ashar, which is that word of their Aleph Shin Resh.
A good attribute of a marriage.
Fitting and equal. Different but equal.
Yep.
Fitting. Worth. If you buy something, you say it's not worth that price, but when something is worth that price, well, that's fit, that's compared, that's equality, that's the balanced scales. It's where you get the word equi, as in equisetum, or which has to do with the horsetail plant, and equi as in the word equitable, that's valuable, that's fair. It's also iso, as we said in the word isosceles, and it's having to do with the proportion and value. Well, the proportion and value is the word shin vav vav yod. So I'm trying to show you that you look at the second word, mashaya, mem, hey, the essence, the quality of what, how many, shin he yod he. But if you look at shin vav vav yod, and you realize it's the same root word for the essence of something's being, the proportion and value, that's mishpat. And when you look at this word, tabanit, tav, bet nun yod, tav, bet nun yod, in between two tavs. Well, the tav is to sign your mark with an X, as it were. So you could say beni, that's the word my son. Is he talking about Yeshua, HaMashiach? Yeah, but he's also talking about Israel. Israel is supposed to be the Yashar El, the straight, smooth, plain, level, correct. That's Yashar of El, Elohim, but El is also power. Allah is Aleph Lamed Hey, is where the Islamic guys get the name of the Elohim, which means these. It also means to curse. So you could say that even in the Arabic language, the word for Allah means that the reality of what exists is going to be made equal. And the kingdom of heaven's foundation of Yahuwah's throne is to chase hard after making that happen. That's what this is saying. So whatever you do is going to come back on you. Whatever fruit you bear, you will eat. Whatever cup you give to somebody else to drink, you will have it multiplied, amplified to its essence, and Yahweh is going to make you drink it. And if you conduct evil, he's going to bring that evil onto your back on your head, as they say, in spades, meaning to the hilt, full bore, whatever the essence of the evil is that you have in your heart, your mem, to noon, to samik, to make ayan and make other people eat, Yahweh's going to turn it on you for now and for eternity. That's the mishpat of the kingdom of Yahuwah. And he strives eagerly to make it so. That word, Shin Vav Hagen, come into agreement, made alike, worth, value, price, equal, equality, Shin Vav, Yod Vav, Nun, Yod Vav, Tav. Well, what's all these letters? Those are just suffixes added to the essence of Shin He He, which is little lamb. What? Little lamb? That's right. Delay, tarry. So the same word for little lamb, that which you sustain with intent. How you noon what's in your memming that then gets nooned, becomes the tree samic bearing the fruit ayin that you are going to eat pay, and then its repercussive zadi is going to be either ascending up into the Reshin or descending into the lake of fire. That Reshin. What has been already exists, and what is still to be has already been, and God always seeks the pursued. Rashi in Stone Tanakh says, to exact retribution from the pursuer. That's the same thing. It doesn't exactly say that because it's blah, 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 sounding like gobbledygook, but to exact retribution from the pursuer. Yeah, but the better way to say it is not just to say the pursuer, because if you pursue righteousness, you will drink the cup of that Mayim Chayim, living water of righteousness. And he is going to make sure that happens. What we sustain in our heart is what comes back. What goes around comes around. This guy I used to work with, hey, Jim Miller, said, yep, he heard it, what comes around goes around. It's like, no, it's what goes around comes around. What you do is what comes back. No, what comes on you is what you say. He refused to understand. I was trying to correct the concept there. If somebody think, yeah, it's just a big vicious circle. No, it's not a big vicious circle. Each one of us have the opportunity to change that cycle, to break the inherited family curses, you might say, the generational mandate of the spinning, because the word dor lador has to do with this recycling, and like that's generation to generation. But the thing is, listen, just because something came upon you doesn't mean you need to perpetuate it, sustain it, and keep it going like the fermata above the whole note. What comes around is not necessarily what goes around, and if you think it does, then you're going to be sucked right into that whirlpool of destruction and calamity and be thrown into the fires of hell.
Keep calling it a vicious circle, that's what it's going to be.
It doesn't have to be. Each one of us here and now have the ability and the job description as a human agent to stop that cycle and do righteousness, which is to regard the Torah, take it to heart, and bear good fruit of the Spirit, of the Ruach, which is in Galatians 5:22. And those who don't read the New Testament, sorry, you miss out on all that wisdom and insight that Mashiach Yeshua gave us. Gentleness, kindness, peace, love, goodness, self-control, enduring temperance. Unfortunately, all that stuff has to only be appreciated in the midst of the dark calamity of the travail of the place of the weapon outside the fence. But he gave us that fence. And again, the word chesed. Hodu la Yowah ki tov ki leolam chazdo. Forever enduring without compromise, without negating is his chesed. But chesed, het samek is a refuge. Samek dalet is a secret foundation. So you might say his secret refuge, his kindness, is forever. It's not done away with. It's not a covenant which has been abandoned. In Israel, his people are also not abandoned. He said because our forefathers didn't cooperate, they brought upon themselves, especially the 10 tribes to the north, a 2,730-year curse. That was the balancing of scales. It would take them 2,730 years to balance the scales of their iniquity, and now we're outside, so we stand now at the position of putting stuff in our side of the scale that Yahweh will balance. And the other interesting thing about that, there's this other verse that said, Mishpat like water, Zadakah like a river. What? Mishpat like water. Justice like water, righteousness like a river. It's just a statement. What the heck is that supposed to mean? Well, the word Mishpat is balance scales. So when you balance scales like water, we set up a water level the other day. You have the hose with the clear ends, you put water in it, you hold it here, you can be 100 feet away, you can be 5 feet away, you can be 1,000 yards away. You hold it up and water's going to seek its level and tell you exactly. A laser is not going to be as exact as that water level. Mishpat like water. Mishpat's always going to find its balance every single time. So like with Mickey Mouse making the brooms and carrying the water for him, it's like the burden of carrying that water is on us. And if you try to do witchcraft, the whole thing's going to explode in your face, and you're going to the lake of fire if you mess with witchcraft. That's what he said. It's an abomination, and it's unacceptable. And those who practice witchcraft, sorcery, wizardry, necromancy, they don't enter the kingdom. That's what he said in the book of Revelation. You do not get to enter the kingdom of heaven.
And it does say it's real.
It is real. Yahweh, that's an interesting thing. Yahweh constructed the universe in such a way that stuff works. And then he says, now don't do it. Why is it there? It's a tar pit. It's a trap to sucker people in who are going to be destroyed. Don't go there. So Yahweh booby-trapped this place. It's like an obstacle course with booby traps, with landmines, with tar pits. I say tar pits in La Brea, Los Angeles. There's a tar pit. And it's like, oh boy, you get sticky, you get black stuff all over you, but then they found some animals and they start digging down in there, and the thing is quite deep and it's filled with all kinds of prehistoric animal bones, mastodons and saber-toothed tigers and woolly mammoth, but certainly the mastodons there, and all sorts of, camels and horses and other things that used to live in L.A. Yahweh built that, and witchcraft is a tar pit. It looks interesting, it looks like water, it looks like it might be fun, and then, a mastodon would get stuck and start yelling, and then a saber-toothed tiger would jump on him, and a dire wolf would come to eat that, and they'd all get stuck, and the vultures, the condors would come to eat those, and they'd get stuck, and they'd all go down in the pit together.
Quite a vision.
That's the sorcery. So when I have the picture of the saber-toothed tiger, the smilodon, it's invoking all these other things. Everything on here is all this symbolic graphic imagery wrapped up in it. But what I'm saying is that this is really serious business. But it's all to be resolved in the spelling of the Hebrew words. There's such profound, Chabad, Chakma, Bina, Da'at. That's an acronym that some Jewish folks have for seeking out Chakma, that's wisdom, Bina, understanding, Da'at, knowledge, Chet, Bet, Dalet, Chabad. Wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. That's great Torah truth. That's not anything profane. Of course, people seeking wisdom, knowledge, and understanding also turn into, say, unnamed. I'm not going to name the names of the secret occult societies.
They turn into sorcerers.
They're into sorcery, and Yahweh says they're all going down. Don't join them. But he left them there to entice those who don't want his ways. Choose life or choose death. Here's the death. You can have it. You can play with it. You can be skull and bones pirates if you want to, and you'll burn in hell. Get stuck in the tar pit and burn in hell. And only those who seek out Yeshua, Yahuwah, Ehyeh, Chayim, the Mayim Chayim, the waters of life. That's where you get it. You don't get the water that's on the tar pit. You go for the spring water of life, which is in the Hebrew. And as we said before, I've heard it said that somebody said, well, studying the Bible in English is like drinking from the cesspool. If you study it in Latin or Greek, it's like from the drain pipe under your sink. If you go to the Hebrew, it's the fresh spring water coming out of the mountain. Mayim Kayim, living water. It's like there's something in the Hebrew to be said. Anyway, so this verse in Kohelet 3:15 is not philosophical gobbledygook. It's telling us how the kingdom of heaven works, but it's not translated that way. Why? Do these guys not know who write the translations? Is it too many words to sit there and elaborate? Or do they just stick them there and say, it's close enough? What has been already exists. What? What has been already exists? That's the way it's translated in Stone Tanakh. And what is still to be has already been. There's nothing new under the sun. I mean, Solomon did say that, but I mean, I'm guessing at what he's trying to say and what that means. But if you look at it in Hebrew, it's like the whole thing opens up and says, the kingdom of heaven's pursuit is to make sure that what you do comes back on your own head. Yahweh's whole business is to ensure the fact that a man will eat the fruit of his own deeds. And Yahweh will absolutely ensure before this earth is over that every nation's occupation becomes its fate. Every man and every nation is destined to eat of its own fruit. And what this United States has done to peoples of the world, including the Latinos, the blacks, the Asians, the Irish, the unborn, this nation deserved everything coming down on it, which is to implode, not by necessarily an armed neighbor force, but by its own cannibalism of itself. And it's like, I'm not surprised. It does deserve it. Our only appeal is to Yahweh, but I don't know that we can save this nation, whether it's by Trump or Biden and whoever else might end up running for office. But what I'm saying is, we're doomed because of what we have done for 200 years and what we continue to do today, because we have fermented, insane iniquity. We have Shin He Yod He, our own demolition, our own annihilation, our own death. And our only saving is to turn to Yahweh and immediately start conducting righteousness. And sit down on Shabbat and keep his Moedim, because that's the expression of the, yes, we've turned to you, we've listened to you, we shemash, we shomer, we oseh, we ashah. We do what we now do as we comprehend.
But it's going to take enough people to move those scales.
How many of who, doing what, for how long, with what heart?
We don't know.
To make an... But I did hear, now when I say I hear, I read in the scripture this thing that says, wickedness weighs nothing. So you could say, how many, if you have a ton of feathers, how many tons of bricks will it take to offset the ton of feathers? How many tons of bricks will offset a ton of feathers?
1 ton. That's a ton. It's a ton.
It's a trick question.
I know, but they're both a ton.
Where two
That's
or
right.
more,
That's a trick question.
where 2 or more are gathered in his name outweighs the whole of the wicked earth.
That's right. To say that wickedness weighs nothing, it weighs less than a ton of feathers. So it weighs nothing. So to do righteousness is something. It's substance. To do righteousness is substance. So when he says, mishpat like water, zadikah like a river. So you picture this scales, a balance. On a fulcrum, here's the lever. And if you say, okay, here's all the evil people doing wickedness, it doesn't weigh anything. But the scales tipped in their favor when Yahweh's people, when his Israel, when his Kadoshim, Elohim do nothing, or they do evil, these guys prevail. But because they weigh nothing, if we start doing righteousness, the scales tip. Now the word righteousness is victory, deliverance, and salvation. So the picture is, when you have something tipped, it's no longer a balanced scale of mishpat water finding its own balance. In order for mishpat to find its balance, it rushes in like a mighty river. The more you tip it, the faster it's going to flow in order to find the balance again. And so this is this incredible esoteric physics, this one verse, mishpat like water, zadikah like a river. Zadikah is righteousness, but it's also victory, deliverance, and salvation. If you want victory, deliverance, and salvation, you do righteousness. And because the universe is built on mishpat, and the kingdom of heaven pursues eagerly to make that synonymous, the balanced scales, then when we do righteousness, victory, deliverance, and salvation is going to come in like that raging river we saw yesterday at flood season. Wham! Yahweh's going to see to it that we win, because the wicked have nothing.
We
and
win.
When you understand that physics, that mathematical equation of the universe, beyond the evident universe, that's the foundation of the throne of Elohim, Yahuwah, Ehyeh, on how he built the universe. And the insights that are in these scriptures, that's in this simple Hebrew aleph bet, is just astounding. And the guys that are perpetuating this violence either are being used as his stooges, as Yahweh's patsies to destroy this country that's well-deserved, or they don't get it and they're going to bring the destruction on their own head. Just like in the days of Gideon, the days of Joshua, the days of David and Saul, where he turned those people on themselves and they destroyed themselves. And Yahweh's people, Joshua, I mean, we talked about this once before, that Saul and Jonathan, there was 2 swords. They had 600 men in their army, and more were defecting every day. And there was so many in the valley, it filled the valley, and it couldn't be numbered, like the sand of the sea. There could have been, what? You could count 60,000. There might have been 600,000. Let's say there were 600,000 soldiers of I think there was 3 different armies. And Saul and Jonathan had 2 swords and 600 guys. And that's where Jonathan and his shield bearer went up the mountain. They said, hey, come up here, we'll teach you something. And he said, okay, that was the signal that Yahweh had given them in their hands. Jonathan and his armor bearer prevailed against that garrison. What was there, 5 guys, 20 guys? Jonathan and his shield bearer won. And then it says that there was like this vibe, this something rolled down the mountain, and when it hit the guys down below, they all turned on each other and started slaughtering each other. And then Saul, with his 1 sword, and his guys, they might have had, sticks or something, they came running in, picked up the weapons, and chased those guys, and they won. Yahweh can do stuff like this.
Yes.
Set the guys on each other, because it's their own insanity that they're going to eat the fruit of their own doings. The Amalekites thought they prevailed. They were like a Viking raid. They went and just ravaged the entire countryside. David came in, story of Zigzag, 1 Samuel chapter 29 and 30, and he got so much loot from killing all those guys that he gave it to a dozen different cities and got every person back. They haven't killed a single one of them. Yahweh can turn the tide. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. He said, do not fear. Okay. We've got to take these things to heart and say, okay. The guys that are running this insanity, running the news, fake news, hysterical news, quit listening to the news. Read Yahweh's word. Learn his language. It's all there in the language. Yeshua is our sent one to bring us into the kingdom that we have no rights to deserve to be in. Because Yeshua died on that crucifix, that cross, that stake, whatever you think it was, because he died, he can buy us in who have no deserved right to be in, but because we choose to be people of the covenant, we have every right to be there.
I'd just like to add that hopefully this gets out and people see it, that they do understand there's a lot of detail here and there's a lot to know, but even us simple folks get so much out of this. There's no beginning and there's no end to his alphabet.
It's the spiraling staircase going
So
up
we're not
as opposed to
talking
the
about-
vortex of destruction to the pit.
We're not talking about conversational Hebrew here. We're talking about what it really says, and anyone can stop and take the time to do it, and that one thing may open up your mind and change your whole life like it did me. So that's the point on it. You don't Eric's brilliant and a great guy and can even talk to a schmuck like me on my level, which is awesome. A lot of people won't do that for you, and they're the real schmucks. So this is just what my 2 cents. And that's what. Praise Yah.
Shalom Aleichem. Peace to you all.